Hello, my name is Neil Roberts and I'd like to spend a few moments with you explaining the features and benefits of the new Telair T9602 humidity and temperature sensor. So we'll start with looking at a historical way of putting a humidity sensor into a control system, where typically we will have a sensor transmitter and a controller. So the controller will have a power supply on board. It will provide 24-volt AC to the sensor, which has an onboard power supply unit, and then from its element it will use either a D to A converter, so a digital to analog converter, or it will have some form of amplifier to send a 0 to 10 or 4 to 20 milliamp signal back to the controller. And then within the controller, often that analog signal will be converted again to a digital signal so that the controller can microprocess the information and perhaps pass it further along onto some form of energy management system. With the 9602, we do away with a number of those components. The sensor itself has a built-in ASIC, and the power supply for it is either 3 or 5 volt, which is normally found on any controller that has any form of microprocessing on board. The output from the sensor, either digital I2C or a pulse density modulated signal. So now the T9602 concept has saved a number of components by allowing the sensor chip to communicate directly with the controller, bypassing the need for converters and power supplies, as it also will use the 3.3 or 5 volt rail to power the sensor. As a product, it is essentially a filtered and overmolded chip cap 2. So very well protected sensor now. It also has a small JST connector, details of which will be found on the data sheets, and it's available as an analog or digital version. On the screen you can see a couple of mounting options. The sensor itself has same diameter as a cable, so it's a 9/16 or a 9.1 millimeter cable clip, or a grommet that can be used to either surface mount it or through hole mount it using standard electrical components. Looking at the specifications, the sensing element is exactly the same as the chip cap 2. That after all is what it is. It's a chip cap 2 that's been overmolded. And we have, within that range, we have I2C or pulse density modulated outputs. Very easy to install it. Unusually for a humidity sensor, we have a very high level of protection. It's actually IP65, which is dust tight and water jet. Both humidity and temperature have 14-bit outputs, so very high level of resolution, and the relative humidity is actually a 2% accuracy chip, and it's been calibrated to that. Looking at a few of the benefits, it is very quick to install, very flexible with its mounting options, and by taking those transmitter and control electronics out that we saw earlier, we've actually substantially reduced the cost. It's an already calibrated sensor, so as either an installer or as a customer, it's a ready-to-go solution. Typically we find that the sensor itself will work out at something like half the cost of a typical temperature and humidity transmitter. Couple of applications for you. We've sold a lot already into small commercial heat exchangers, so where we have a cross-flow heat exchanger with a couple of fans and filters built in as a unit. They're now looking to monitor temperature and humidity so that they do actually an enthalpy comparison to make the unit even more efficient. Other applications, dehumidifiers, monitoring concrete as it dries, all are applications where the 962 has already been used. So a number of OEM ventilation installations. So what Telair have done is identified the need for a low-cost humidity sensor package where small ventilation companies have previously been prohibited from installing humidity on the smaller units or the low-end units that they provide because of the cost. Now we've got a lower cost solution, and it's done it by taking out the excessive electronics. It does obviously have a limitation because we're using a low power in terms of run length and wire length, but in those small applications that's not a problem. So Telair have made a very simple, easy to install OEM solution for temperature and humidity. Looking at the part numbers and how they're made up, 9602 is the basic number for the range. The operating voltage, either 3 or 5 volts, followed by whether the analog or digital output is used, and the cable length is either 1.8, which is 5.9 feet, or 1 meter, which is just over 3 feet. Looking at that in a tabular format, these are the 8 options. Essentially we have the choice between digital or analog, 3 volt or 5 volt, and 1.8 or 1 meter cable lengths. Point to note with a pulse density modulated output, the addition of a simple low pass filter will actually convert the signal into a linear voltage output. Thank you for spending the time. If you have any other queries, please consult with either your distributor or account manager, and we look forward to supporting you.